Let's go a Viking on Viking Hot Takes.
Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl and celebrated in style with a boat parade. Vikings offensive tackle Riley Reiff, he's got $1 million extra in his pocket. And now it's time for Viking Hot Takes, the fast-moving Minnesota Vikings talk show. We've got Warren Ludford from the Daily Norseman. We've got me, Flip Mazzi, from Climbing the Pocket. And we've got fans in the comments. So buckle up and let's go. Warren, how are you, good sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, you ready to get started?
I am ready. Ready as I'll ever be, I guess. How about you?
I'm ready. So, David, can you put the timer on the clock? I'm going to start with the first of our 6 questions in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it. So, Warren, after hiring Dom Capers as defensive assistant in 2020, the Vikings hired Mike Zimmer's longtime friend, Paul Guenther, for 2021. What do you think about this hire?
Okay. When I first read about that, I was kind of like, whatever. But I listened to him in his press conference today. And, he used to be the linebacker coach when Zimmer was in Cincinnati, and then he took over as DC after he left and then moved on to the Raiders. And so I didn't, with Capers last year, he was kind of just providing some whatever different ideas from his background and his schemes. I think Guenther's going to be a little different, though, because he's more or less the same scheme as Zimmer. And so from what he said in his press conference, he's going to be helping out with coaching a little bit on each level, as well as looks like some of the game, the game planning a little bit. And so I'm thinking that with all the young players they have on defense, having another coach to help coach, Zimmer's scheme is going to be helpful, because there's, with so many young guys, I mean, they can't have too many coaches, I would say, from that aspect. And I'm thinking from, he's been more AFC. And so maybe with some of particularly the AFC game plans against AFC teams, he might be more helpful and just like understanding who, the team and, just his experience from that end.
Okay, so what do you grade this hire? Because the Vikings defensive staff is very weird right now. You've got Mike Zimmer, you've got 2 co-defensive coordinators, and then you've got this assistant defensive coordinator now in Paul Guenther. So, does this even matter, or are the Vikings just hiring one of Mike Zimmer's friends to put him on the payroll?
I think it matters a little bit. I mean, it's not an A hire. I'll say I'll give it a B. Some people say it's a C hire because, what's he really going to bring to the table? But I think I give it a little higher than a C, and that's why I go B, because if he's able to help coach up some of the young guys a little bit, especially if we have a regular off season and whatnot, that'll be helpful. And to the extent he can be helpful in any of the game planning, that's good. I'd be interesting to see if he's going to be up in the booth during games. I kind of got that impression from the press conference, and so maybe from that perspective, that is helpful too. I don't know, but as soon as he was fired from the Raiders, I figured I wasn't surprised that he got in contact with Zimmer, and I wasn't surprised that he joined the Vikings, but. You can't call it an A because, he just doesn't have that street credibility, right off the bat. But, I think it's a B, just if he helps, because he knows the scheme, and if he can help teach the scheme to the young players, I think that's a good thing.
Great. And remember, if y'all are watching, we want to hear from you too. So we want you to answer these questions as we're answering them. Let's get your comments up on the screen. All right, Warren, what's your first question?
Okay, so this off season, the Vikings have some cap issues. If it's going to be 180 or 185 for the salary cap, who do you think is going to be the most likely cap casualty on the Vikings roster, or more than one?
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit with Eric last week, but it's a great question, and it's the main question for the Minnesota Vikings until we get to the start of free agency. So if you ask me who the most likely salary cap casualty for the Vikings is, I think it's Kyle Rudolph. He's the most likely one. We've got a tight end behind him who can take over. And, word is he's already put his Minnesota house on the market. He's ready to move. So that's probably the most likely one. If you like to speculate, just start looking at some of the real estate moves that these players are making. But if you want to get controversial now, I think we need to watch out on Anthony Barr. I think he's at best a key restructure. The Vikings defense has talent, but if you believe in positional value, I know you do, Warren, they don't necessarily have talent at the right spots. We've got great linebackers. We've got good safeties. Well, a lot of the NFL, the way they're built right now is they're built at the cornerback position, not the edge rusher position, which is opposite of how the Vikings have built. So there might be an opportunity for them to move from strength at linebacker to strength at other parts of their defense. And if they choose to go that route, then $15.5 million for Anthony Barr is just too high.
Yeah, I agree there. Yep.
Yeah.
It'd be
go ahead.
It'd be interesting to see if they do something with Barr, where they put that money, if it's, the other edge rusher or, a D tackle or something. Maybe
veteran cornerback.
Yeah, something like that. So we'll see. I agree with Rudolph as well. I'm not, I know that they just, kind of did the right thing a little bit with Reef and gave him that extra $1 million that he came close on. But I still would put him up there just without, if there's going to be, say a Oli Udo or somebody comes up that, okay, all of a sudden he's ready, they feel he's ready to go. Or even, Rashad Hill or something. I don't know. That's probably not ideal, but if they feel like they've got somebody, or if Ezra Cleveland, they want to try him out at left tackle. If they feel they've got somebody that, there's not going to be a big drop in performance, Reef's salary is one of the big ones. And so just for that reason alone, I think he's up there. I don't know if they'll end up moving on from him or not, but that's certainly a possibility, I'd say.
Well, okay. So we got a couple of questions here. Number one, I want to address Clifford's question in the comment. Do they think they could swing a trade with a 3-4 team for Anthony Barr? I think definitely. I think the 4-3 versus 3-4 scheme ideas are a bit outdated, and more teams are switching between those two defenses. Not to mention the importance of the slot cornerback in today's NFL. But in any event, Anthony Barr, a team that's going to view him more as a pass rusher, definitely could, provide more value to us back in a trade. The other comment I had was for you, Warren, and just this idea that Riley Reef could be a cap casualty. To me, that it doesn't make sense, because the Vikings, like you said, we don't have anybody behind Riley Reef who's gonna play as well as Riley Reef could. If there was like Kyle Rudolph, for example, there's an Irv Smith behind him. So if we had something like that for Riley Reef, sure, we could cut him. But unless you think that guy is Ezra Cleveland, unless you have to be able to move on from Riley Reef because you think Ezra Cleveland's really good, right? So
or that they've got somebody on the roster that they feel, even though we don't, he's not a proven commodity, they feel just from his practice and everything else, the coaching's like, okay, this guy's ready to move up. And that could be something that happens during the off season too, like, in the course of OTAs or whatever else, they feel like, okay, is this guy ready or not? because they're gonna, and it's a matter of priority. If they've got to cut, basically 20 million, give or take, and if that's what it turns out to be, they've got to do that somehow. And Rudolph isn't going to be enough, and they're going to have to restructure or do something else. And maybe that's what they try and do with Reef again. Although that's kind of, he took it last year, and who knows what happens this year. But I think he's just from they got to cut something. I think beyond Rudolph, and so where do you go? And Barr is the other one, and they could do it between Rudolph and Barr potentially, and then beyond that, do they want to spend on another edge rusher? Let's say maybe there's like a Carl Lawson or something that they could go after, but they'd still need some more cap space to do that, even if they cut Rudolph and Barr. If it turned out to be a 180 or maybe even 185 salary cap limit this year.
Yeah. Good points. All right, let's keep on moving. So to get to the meat of this show, this is the question I'm most excited about, is the article you wrote on the Daily Norseman called "How to Build a Super Bowl Winning Team." And I thought it was fantastic. I think more fans need to read this article. It's on the Daily Norseman. It's heavily recommended by me. And you discuss several different traits that Super Bowl winners have. One that caught my eye is the tight end spot. Super Bowl teams have a top 10 tight end in yards per route run. And now, like we just talked about, the Vikings tight end spot is in flux. So do you think this is just Irv Smith season 2021, or do you think the Vikings just are going to be lacking at tight end?
I think Irv Smith could get there. Of course, it's integrating him into the office a little bit more. But I want to say for last year, even though he didn't have a lot of he was second string and didn't have a lot of playing time and whatnot, I think he was 14th or something like that in yards per run route. So he wasn't that far off.
Okay.
But I think this season it's just a matter of if they move on from Rudolph as we expect. Okay, he's going to get more playing time there because then he'll move up to the number one spot. But then it's integrating him into the offense, getting him a little bit, more of better rapport with Kirk Cousins. And then also, now that Justin Jefferson is, big time and drawing that type of attention as he's been talking about, maybe that allows Irv Smith the opportunity, if they're focusing on Justin Jefferson, they're playing off where he can, do some of those underneath crossers or, stuff like that, where all of a sudden he can become more productive. And, Irv is, different from Rudolph, where he's, more of a receiver, I would say, wide receiver type. I mean, not 100%, but he's more in that direction than Rudolph was. And so I think he's more of a threat once he's got the ball in his hands than Rudolph, just with his speed and moves and so forth. He may not be, that, back of the end zone, throw it high for Rudolph to catch type of thing. He can't do that as much with Irv, but they had some interesting plays last year with those that little underneath route to get Irv in the end zone. But I think there's potential there with Justin being more of a threat, and Thielen still being Thielen. They're not going to ignore him, and so that could leave some space open for Irv underneath where he could flourish.
Yeah, I like that. The key there is that Irv, like you said, is already 14th in yards per route run. So hopefully with the full season, he can be the number one tight end for us. All right. 7 minutes left, Warren. Hit me with the next one.
Okay. So which of the 2020 rookies do you think will make the biggest leap this coming season, 2021?
Great. Yeah. So it can't be Justin Jefferson because we already think the world of. I mean, the guy is elite, plain and simple. We'll keep it short because the clock is ticking. I don't even think it can be Cam Dantzler. He was good. I don't see him, becoming an all-pro or Pro Bowl cornerback in year 2. My pick for this is Ezra Cleveland because it comes down between him, Ezra Cleveland, and Jeff Gladney. I have serious concerns about Jeff Gladney, more confident in Ezra Cleveland. Hopefully they keep his development going at offensive guard. I don't like when young players are moved around early in their development. Every Vikings fan has nightmares at TJ Clemmings, but they have a chance to do like they did with Brian O'Neill, build upon a solid first season, even though a lot of things were happening around Ezra. They kept him at that guard spot. And he's got, the athletic skills and the pass blocking skills, hopefully, to be a competent guard for us and lock down that position long term. So that's my pick, Ezra Cleveland.
Very good. Yeah, I can see that.
All right, Warren, back to your article. We're going back to how to build a Super Bowl winning team. And you're talking about everything from quarterback to kicker in this document. So my final question is, what is the biggest thing the Vikings need to win a Super Bowl but don't have?
Well, I think that's there's a lot of things you could put on the list. They're not quite there yet, or, are somewhat of a need or whatever, but like offensive line, for example. But I'd just say the defense, because, up until last year, they were there. But after last year, all of a sudden, they're not even close. I mean, it was, points, they were 29th in the league last year, which is right at the bottom. The good news is Tampa Bay was 29th last year. And so they were able to move up, with a collection of, veteran free agents that they signed, some of them, older and young guys, like Antoine Winfield Jr.
How good does the defense need to be?
I looked at it in terms of opposing passer rating allowed. And there's a lot of different ways you could do that, but you can't, some top defenses do it more on the back end. Some do it more with a, really strong pass rush. Some it's a combination. So you can't really say, there's different ways to skin that cat, so to speak. But in terms of overall having the opposing QB limited to about an 85 passer rating or less, you look at the top of the Legion of Boom years in the last 10 years, and they had a year where the opposing passer rating was like 64 or 65, which was the best in the last decade. But, and actually the last couple of years, the Super Bowl winning team, it's been a little bit higher, but basically 85 passer rating of 85 for the opposing quarterbacks is kind of, the average for Super Bowl winning teams over the last 10 or 11 years. And so, and that's been pretty consistent. I mean, even the worst team that made it to the Super Bowl, the opposing passer rating allowed was like 92. So, I mean, you really got to be there. And whether, obviously the pass rush and coverage are two pieces of the two big pieces of the puzzle. You gotta have that. And for the Vikings, that means, getting Hunter back, getting, a Pierce or D tackles that can maybe press the pocket a little bit. Maybe Wanham steps up. Maybe they get somebody else on that side. But they need to have that. And then, because without that, it's hard to see the young secondary being able to hold up long enough, even in year 2. So I think they need to have that pass rush, and then that can help out some of those young guys where, maybe they can perform at a high enough level for, 3-4 seconds and not, 5-6, or however long, because the Vikings pass rush last year was terrible.
Yeah, you said 85 passer rating. So what was the Vikings pass rating allowed this year? Do you know?
I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but it's a lot closer to 100. It's at least
A lot closer to 100.
I mean, they got a ways to go. They got a ways
Yeah,
to go.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I want to say it was right around 100, and I can't remember the number right off the top of my head. But I mean, that's a ways to go because there's a big difference. Being 100 is pretty close to a top 10 quarterback. Most years. It wasn't this year, but Tom Brady was 102. Kirk Cousins was 105. So you're looking at I don't know. Sam Darnold was a little less than that, but I mean that's the type of that's a 85 passer rating, pretty close. So
yeah. All right, we've got seconds for this last question. I'm going to try to answer it. Warren.
Okay. What do you think of the Klint Kubiak hire?
In 30 seconds, I'm okay with it. I think Clint is such an unknown that I think in its own way, it's an aggressive, risky move, which I like. I like this team to take some risky moves. A lot of people have issues that if he does end up being a good offensive coordinator, he'll vault to head coach, but the Vikings can groom him to be the next Vikings head coach if they believe he's that good. I'm hopeful that Clint has some ideas on how to evolve the Vikings offense, because if he's just running a Gary Kubiak Jr. scheme, it's not going to work. That's my take on Klint Kubiak. Got it in time. Warren,
that's right.
Thank you so much for joining. That's all the questions. That's it for Viking Hot Takes. Do you have any closing comments, Mr. Ludford? Make them count.
Oh, just good job getting that last part in there. That was a lot to get in 30 seconds. But yeah, I like it was good. I like your takes. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime. And for all the people watching, the Climb in the Pocket Network, Daily Norseman, we're here in the off season. We're writing good articles. We're posting great shows and even better podcasts. Well, I mean, it's just an all around comprehensive media view on Vikings football by Vikings fans. So keep on tuning in. We're going to keep on pumping out the content. And until next time, y'all, Skol
Vikings. All right.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.